If you're drowning in all the information in first aid, you're probably using it wrong. In this video, I'm going to explain how someone like me who struggled with the SATs scored in the 99.9th percentile with not much more than this book. And today, I'm going to help you overcome the top 3 mistakes that students make with first aid for step 1. Let's jump in. Mistake number 1 is people don't really understand how first aid was made. And because they don't understand how it was made, they're not really understanding how to use it properly. Yale medical students were struggling with step 1. And so an enterprising group of individuals decided that they would go up to students who had taken their test and basically ask them, hey, I will give you $5 if you tell me the questions that were on the test. And what they did was actually really interesting. What they did is they took the questions and they published the information that you would need in order to get the question correct. And so the book basically became a compendium of all the information that they were being tested on their exams. This is relevant because it's not really made in such a way that you would learn these topics in the first place, right? Most textbooks, they're guiding you through from the beginning to the end of how it is that you might learn a topic from the beginning. First aid kind of assumes that you have a lot of knowledge. And because they assume that you have that knowledge, they're really just telling you what the targets of the things that you need to learn in depth are. I think one of the most overwhelming things about step 1 is that both the depth, in terms of how well you need to know each topic, as well as the breadth, in terms of how many topics you need to know, is much more than any exam you've probably taken in your life. And so as a way of filtering out all of the many, almost infinite number of things that you might be tested on, first aid is a really good filter that you can use to help you to understand what are the things that I need to learn in depth. So if you like having insider information to know how to best use these resources and maximize your score, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button so that you can be informed anytime we drop new knowledge on how you can do better in less time. So mistake number 2 is that people use first aid as sort of a Bible of things that they need to memorize, rather than using it as a target of things that they need to learn conceptually. And so what I want to talk about next is how you can solve the problem if you've been memorizing these things as just facts, or if you have been struggling with the volume of information that's in first aid, you can use this as a way to cut down on the amount that you need to learn and to do better with the information that you already have available to you. We've all seen epidural hematomas. In first aid might say something like rupture of the middle meningeal artery, which is a branch of the maxillary artery, often secondary to skull fracture, involving the pterion, which is the thinnest area of the lateral skull, might present with the transient loss of consciousness, recovery, and then rapid deterioration due to hematoma expansion. You can read the other parts of it, but that will feel like there's a bunch of things that you need to memorize. Let's start with the fact that an epidural hematoma comes from rupture of the middle meningeal artery. So arteries themselves have higher pressure and they have typically thicker or more resilient walls. So because of this, it makes sense that you would need to have very focal damage to a particular part of the skull to cause damage to it, right? It's not necessarily going to be like a subdural hematoma, which is rupture of the bridging veins, right, which are probably going to be more fragile. This is a more sort of tough and resilient artery that is going to be harder to rupture. The second thing is that because it's an artery, it has much higher pressure than, say, a vein. And because of that, you would expect that the amount of blood that would accumulate in the epidural hematoma would accumulate much faster and thus present much more quickly than, say, a subdural hematoma, which is from a vein, which is going to have lower pressure and thus expand more slowly and ultimately presents on a much longer time scale. Again, this is just one simple principle and one simple concept that you can use. And now because of that, I can explain many other facts that they might list in first aid or that might show up in my exam, even if I didn't learn them directly. So the final mistake that people make with first aid is that they use it in isolation and they use it independent of ways of verifying that their studying is actually working to improve their score. We respond to psychological threats in the same way that we would a physical threat. So in other words, if a lion was charging at us, we have a fight or flight response. But in a very similar way, if something is psychologically threatening, like say we do a practice question block on UWorld and we get a low score, we're gonna have the same sort of physiologic response of fight or flight, and we're often going to avoid them. While it's natural to avoid things that are uncomfortable, you wanna be careful with this because you can, by avoiding the problem can actually just grow. There are lots of reasons why your score might not be going up, and unless you are tracking your scores using practice exams, or at the very least doing practice questions, then you're not really going to be able to see this until it's oftentimes late or even, maybe too late. So what I would recommend instead is to take an NBME before you feel ready. So if you feel afraid of taking a practice exam and can relate to the feelings of inadequacy or doubt that many of us feel when we take these practice tests, leave a comment talking about what you're afraid of and how you're going to still assess your baseline so that you can overcome these fears. So if you find these tips helpful, be sure to let us know in the comments what you'd like to know more of. We use your comments and your input as ways to know how best to serve you by providing high quality content. What if you could walk into step 1 already knowing you'll pass? In my next video, I break down the exact 10-step framework that virtually guarantees you'll pass. Not through luck or grinding harder, but through a systematic approach that just works. Click here to watch how to virtually guarantee a step 1 pass and get the system now.